Hello and welcome to Lobjit Gaming and welcome to another first Descendant video. So in this video, I wanted to cover the top mobbing descendants in the game right now, in my opinion. And the idea behind this was to cover several builds in one video really quickly so that if anybody wants to just have a quick reference point, go through several descendants for mobbing and they can use this one. So I'll cover Ines, I'll cover Freyna, Bunny, Valby, Viessa, Keelan, and Blair. Okay, so I'll just quickly go over that. I'll not go into too much detail. I have made several separate videos for these people, so I'll link them below if you wanted to understand how the build works and how to play the Descendant, etc. So this is just like a quick reference for anybody who wants to have a quick look. So we'll start with Ines. Descendant page is here, module page. We are using Time of the Hunting Hounds mode. There is a second build that is also very useful for Ines, especially for Void Erosion March 30. I'll not go into that because the focus here is mobbing. So 400% Sigma sector, things like that. Okay. Void Vessel. So Time of the Hunting Hounds is the Transcendent mode. She has good crit rate, and if you have more MP, her crit rate goes up. So we are taking advantage of that. So first we have two cooldown mods, MP Conversion and Nimble Fingers. We have Skill Insight, Skill Concentration, Focus on Electric, Focus on Tech. We have Frontlines for more crit rate, crit damage, Skill Expansion, increased HP, and then we have Amplification Control for the second range mod. Okay, so that is the build here. All her abilities with this mod are Electric and Tech. So we use an Electric and Tech reactor. She is good with crit rate, so we are going to use crit damage and cooldown. The mounting is Tactical Rifle, and because we want the Secret Garden, she uses tech abilities. Secret Garden gives you a boost. The unique ability is called Pest Control. That gives you more tech power. So that is why we hold the Secret Garden in our hand. And also we can put 3 sprint cores on this gun, so you run very fast with this as well. The components, you can go with several options. You can use the standard Slayer set. That is perfectly fine. You can also use what I'm using here, 2 pieces of the Plague set and 2 pieces of the Hunter set. So Hunter set will give you 4% cooldown. This will get us to 90% cooldown if you look at the top page here. And the Plague set will give you singular and tech power. So with the Time of the Hunting House mod, all her abilities become tech. So we'll get an extra 5% tech. If you remove that, 2 of her abilities are singular and 2 are tech. So you'll get the benefit here with those. So yeah, this is the setup here. For arcade tuning, I'm using this sort of setup. We are keeping the crit damage, okay, and we are taking all the skill power, MP recovery, we're taking the big, and we're taking the extra. We are not going for the mutant cells here. You can try that. You'll have to use something like this, for example, so that you don't lose the crit damage. And then you can use a cohesion, electric cohesion, or vulnerability to get a little more damage. You will lose the cooldown. You won't have the 90% cooldown if you do this. You'd be 85, which isn't really that big a difference. This will work better with the singular build, but you can use something like this. Again, I wanted to not go into detail, but I am doing that already here. But yeah, for this Transcendent mod, the one we are using, I'm going with a standard non-mutant cell build. Reinforcement. This is a bit optional for Ines, in my opinion. You can take some of the HP. She doesn't use a lot of MP, so that is not needed. If you shoot with the gun, if you want to, you can take one of these. So yeah, this is completely optional for Ines. And yeah, that is the build for Ines. Let's move to the next Descendant. Let's go to Viessa. Now Viessa I've been using a lot for Void Erosion Punch 30. She's very good there because the enemies are weak to chill. And you can also use this for general purpose mobbing. You can spam all 4 of her abilities. All of them will do damage. You can use all of them basically. They all have low cooldown. MP cost is not very high unless you keep spamming all of them at the same time. You can pick and choose a few of them. I generally use the 3rd and 4th ability. The cooldown and the duration on the 2nd is very high, so you don't have to use the 2nd that much, and I rarely use the 1st one. So that is how I play this. So what we have is once again a Descendant with very high crit. So we are again using that. Absolute Zero mode also does the same thing as it does with Ines. It changes all her abilities to singular type. And then we use Focus on Singular, we use Focus on Chill, we use 2 cooldown mods in Nimble Fingers and MP Conversion, Skill Insight, Skill Concentration, Skill Extension, Skill Expansion, and we have increased HP. Okay, there are a few things you can try, but I'm not going to mention too much. But This works very nicely for the Void Erosion Punch that I play, and you can have 6-second cooldown with an 8.2-second duration on a fourth ability. So you have our ability up quite a bit. Now I am using the dagger with the Viessa to like mix skills and shoot the enemies and also save a little bit of MP. Otherwise, I'll be spamming the MP too much. So with the dagger, I'll quickly go over the dagger build here. Action reaction, rifling reinforcement. Then we are using 2 weak point mods. We are using concentration, the crit damage mods. So concentration priority, better concentration. We have a second rounds per magazine mod, which is the concentrate support ammo. This also gives you a little bit more crit damage. Expand weapon charge to give more ammo. And we have fire rate up and a chill enhancement. So this is for Void Erosion Purge 30. On the outside, we have firearm attack, critical hit rate, critical hit damage, and chill attack on the rolls of the gun. And on the core, I have chill attack, firearm attack, rounds per magazine, and fire rate. For the components, we are using 2 pieces of Plague and Hunter, just like we were doing with Ines. You can do the same thing over here. And we are using the Frozen Singularity Reactor. So crit damage and cooldown once again. For the arcade tuning, I'm using this sort of setup. Again, not using the mutant cells. You can try to work that around, but I don't want to lose crit rate or crit damage. And this works out nicely, especially because lowering the cooldown is the main idea behind the build. So very similar to the Ines arcade tuning here. I have 1 or 2 variations, but I'll not go into detail because that's, I think, a bit beyond the scope of the video. Next, we have Ultimate Valby. Valby is also pretty good. Once again, the idea is to spam her first ability as much as possible. And very similar build, again, another crit Descendant. So we have Supply Moisture as the mod. Now she's not normally high with base crit, but the Supply Moisture increases her crit quite a lot. So if you see here, she has 18.635 when she is fully built. But the key here is with the Supply Moisture, if you're standing on water, the crit rate goes up to 93%. So this is why we are using the crit setup here. So once again, we have emergency measures and front lines for the crit rate, crit damage, nimble fingers, MP conversion for the cooldown. We have expansion, we have concentration, we have skill insight, more crit rate, crit damage. We are using power increase instead of focus on non-attribute, simply because we are getting a lot of non-attribute power from the external component set. And we are using 1 HP mod. And what we are using here is the Enlightened Mage set. Now, if you have all 4 stacks of all 4 pieces of the Enlightened set, you get 3 stacks of something called the Truth, which is like a ability, and you can get 3 stacks of that if you use your abilities. And the result is you get 84% more non-attribute power. This is the reason why we are using power increase instead of focus on non-attribute, because we want to balance the damage a little bit. Now, for Valby, the Peacemaker is a stat stick which helps give her more power, more non-attribute power. So what this unique ability does is, if you're using Dimension or Fusion skills, which are the 2 types of skills she uses, you get something called Single Reload for Peace. And if you have 5 stacks of these, you get a lot more non-attribute power. Okay, we are not using the gun to shoot at anything. You can just hold an empty gun with no mods. You just need to have it mounted so that you get extra power. Okay, and then the reactor we are using here is non-attribute and fusion, which is materialized mixture. And the stats I went for are cooldown and crit rate, because again, I'm trying to increase the crit rate. You can go for crit damage and cooldown. You can go for crit rate and crit damage. All of them will work. But again, my idea is to spam the first ability, which is why I went with cooldown. The arcade tuning, once again, is pretty much the same. You can see here the similarities. You can either go with cost or MP recovery, take the big node here, take all the skill power here, take the cooldown. So you are probably noticing the pattern with my builds. I tend to go with cooldown. So once again, we are not using the mutant cell. I have actually put a mutant cell. I tested this build. I'll link the video, you'll have a look. I've tested this in the Void Erosion Purge 30. I was getting a much better time with this one compared to the one with the mutant cell, because I had to sacrifice some crit damage and crit rate, and that was not worth the exchange with having this. So this was better. So this is the one I'm using. Okay, so we have covered everything, have we? Again, once again, with the reinforcement, you can take some more MP. And if you're shooting, you can use the chill stuff. So we are taking MP here. We can take MP here. If you want to spam your first ability, you can take more HP with this one here so that you get 11% more HP. We are okay HP wise. It's not that much, but it can be useful to have a little more HP. So that is the Valby build. I have covered everything, right? RK tuning, reactor components build. Okay, let's move on to Bunny. Now I haven't really used Bunny a lot recently because I mostly use Ines and Freyna for mobbing and even Viessa these days. But Bunny has been the best mobber since the launch of the game, and she's still very good consistently. With Bunny, the interesting thing is I'm still using the old, always running setup. I haven't switched to the fusion build because it's easier for me. And what I do is I try to lower the cooldown on the third to just below the duration. So you can see the duration of the lightning emission is 20 seconds and my cooldown is 18.8. And what we want is to have as much MP as possible and reduce the cost of the MP drain, because with the second ability she's always running and every second she's using 25 MP. I have reduced that to 10.7 per second, and if you increase the MP pool as well, you can keep running for a long time. And then you can use all the things like MP recovery in combat, MP recovery out of combat, things like that. So with the build, we are using electric condense, so you can press the fourth occasionally and get a big damage as well. Focus on singular, and we are using power increase once again, because again, we want to balance the damage. Maximize conservation and strong mentality, 2 mods to reduce the cost. Electric amplification and singular amplification. This is the first non-crit build, by the way, so far. And we have the nimble finger, so only one cooldown mod is needed here. And we are not even using focus on electric, we are using power increase because we don't really need too much cooldown with Bunny. The components, let's start with the ascending armory. I have 2 pieces here, the auxiliary power and the sensor. By the way, with these components, I go with all the MP related stuff. So with this one, we have HP, max HP, MP recovery. With this one, we have MP recovery in combat, max MP, MP recovery modifier and defense. And then you can have anything you like on the fourth one, the plague processor. I tend to go with max shield and shield recovery. So you want all the MP related stuff, the MP in combat, out of combat, modifier, max MP. And this will give you like the most for your skills. And these 2 pieces will reduce your skill cost. These 2 are available in the broken boundary Sigma sector map. And same for these 2. These are also available in the Sigma sector map, broken boundary. These 2 pieces will give you more singular and tech power. Bunny uses singular, so that will help her get a little more power out of these 2. And they also have decent HP, so will give her quite a bit of HP as well. For the reactor, we are using tingling singularity, so electric and singular. And the stats, we are again going for electric and singular. Like I said, we don't need a lot of cooldown, so we are taking the 2 power related things with. For the RK tuning, I've put the mutant cell electrocution vulnerability to give more skill power. And we also wanted these 2 things because we don't have crit rate and crit damage on Bunny, so we can skip these and use those to go over here. We are taking the cooldown because we want it to be just under 20 seconds, so 1 cooldown mod and 1 here, that is enough. We don't need cooldown on the external components, we don't need cooldown on the reactor, we don't need a second cooldown mod or like focus on electric, so just this one and 1 mod is enough. And then we take all the skill related stuff, so even we take the MP recovery, we take this one, MP recovery here, and all of this we take the range here so that we get maximum range. And this is the minor adjustment I've made. Like, you don't really need to go here. You can take some of the other things, but yeah, this is a nice amount of skill power. Why not? Okay, so that is Bunny done. Next, let's move to my favorite, Freyna. So Freyna, I have been using since she got the buff back in September, and then the ultimate came out. Freyna has been a really good Descendant. With Freyna, there are a couple of things you have to keep in mind. They have added the plague set recently, and this works very nicely with Freyna. However, you can still use the Slayer set if you want to go for more cooldown. And in that case, you will have to drop the power increase mod here, and you can put focus on toxic, because with the plague set, you are getting extra toxic power. So that is why I'm using power increase. If you're using the Slayer set, then you can use the focus on toxic and you'll do decent amount of damage. But this setup is the one that does the most damage. The plague set with power increase. Okay, so again, Freyna is non-crit, and we are using the contagion mod. Now, if you want to do more damage, let's say you are taking Freyna to Void Erosion Purge 30, you can drop the contagion because she does more damage per enemy. She'll have more ticks. She'll have 4 ticks here. So let me just remove this. So what you see here, let's take the first ability. First you have the projectile that does a lot of damage. Then you have toxic puddle, room 0 trauma, and panic. You have 3 different dot damages, damage over time. Okay, now if you put the contagion mod, you'll notice the 4th one is gone. And you would be thinking, why do I want to remove one of the ticks? The reason for that is with the contagion mod, when an enemy dies, it explodes and spreads the poison to nearby enemies. So if there are a lot of enemies, you can use contagion and it'll cause a chain reaction. Okay. With Void Erosion Purge, you have groups of 5 enemies spawning at a time. So you want to do more damage to them. You're not worried about spreading the damage because there'll be 5 of them. You'll kill the 4 small enemies. You'll kill the elite enemy, and then the next room will have 5 enemies spawning. So you don't need contagion for that. So if you're using Void Erosion Purge 30, drop the contagion for 400% Sigma sector. Especially, she's very, very strong for the special operations. Like you can throw 1 or 2 of her abilities and go to the next point A, point B, and those guys will be dead. They have put those shields, the Void Erosion type shields, to stop that happening. Otherwise, she was just destroying everything with 1 throw of her Q. So yeah, you can use a beam rifle and you'll be sorted for that. So yeah, non-crit build here. So we are going for tech amplification, toxic amplification, focus on tech, power increase, skill expansion, 2 mods for cooldown, so MP conversion, nimble fingers. You can see these are common among all descendants. Skill extension for a little bit duration, increased HP, and amplification control for the second range mod. Okay, as mentioned earlier, we are using the plague set. Reactor for Freyna is toxic and tech. We are using tech and cooldown. Tech and cooldown will give you a lot of damage. You can use toxic and cooldown if you want. You can use toxic and tech if cooldown is not that important for you. So that is what you use. And once again, Freyna uses tech abilities. So we are using Secret Garden again to get the stacks of extra tech damage. Tech damage. Now onto the arcade tuning for Freyna. I'm using something like this. I am using a toxin cohesion. So basically, we are using all the skill related stuff, and we are using all the skill nodes range over here, and we're taking the big skill node over here and cooldown, and we take all this skill power here and the mutant cell toxin cohesion. So the idea was to use it for Void Erosion Purge 30. We throw the Q that kills the smaller enemies and triggers the toxin cohesion. We get the 3 stacks, and then we do more damage to the elite enemies, whether we use our 4th ability or our normal abilities. So that is the arcade tuning for Freyna. We covered the mod page, we covered the reactor. Let's look at the inversion. Inversion, again, you can take some HP, you can take some MP, more MP if you want, again, if you're spamming the abilities, things like that. Again, we are using the Secret Garden, so we have the sprint course, she will be running fast. So you don't really need that much else, and she's still very strong. Next is Luna, and Luna is surprisingly good. You don't have to use weapons. You just have to pay attention to the nodes coming up on the screen, and you press your 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ability. You can only press 1 of them if you want, but if you can time all 3 of them and get into the routine, she becomes very easy to use for mobbing especially. I ran Sigma sector and had a great time just using Luna. So we are using the noise surge mod here, Transcended. We are using where you see the increased shield, you are quite flexible there. I've put increased shield there just because I wanted to experiment. The thing is, when she gets the enhanced abilities, it increases her MP and shields really quickly. So that is why I said, okay, let's have some more shield because it will get filled up very quickly. But that is a sort of a flexible mod. I'll link the main video and you'll see the explanation there. So we are using frontlines, emergency measures, skill expansion, skill concentration, maximize skill and maximize power. Those 2 mods give you the maximum skill. However, they increase your cooldown. But the idea behind the way Luna works is when you press her abilities correctly, you time it perfectly, you don't need cooldown. They have zero cooldown. So if you see this one here, on top it says on node success, cooldown 0 seconds. So it all depends on whether you can perfectly time your nodes, which isn't too difficult. And so if you do that, you don't need any cooldown on Luna. Then I'm using multi-talented. So let me just show this, because when we are using singular active skills, we are getting all attribute skill power plus 30%. So you'll do more damage, 30% more damage modifier on your non-attribute in this case. And then we have amplification control for more range and increased HP. Okay, so that is the build I've been using, and this works nicely. Mounting, you can use whatever you want. I have a hand cannon here. The reactor, I'm using crit rate and crit damage. This is the materialized singular reactor, so non-attribute and singular, because her second, third, and fourth abilities are singular. And then we have the enlightened mage set, as we were using previously on Valby. So same set here, and you get more non-attribute power. From the build, we are getting base skill power, so this works out nicely. We have a good balance of power. Arcade tuning, because once again she is crit based, we are taking the crit stuff here. And you can use a mutant cell. I haven't used it. I don't have too many of those boxes remaining, and I'm not playing a lot of Luna. But you can get up to here comfortably, because once again we don't need the cooldown, so we can take all the crit rate, crit damage, MP, and stuff like that, and get up to here quite easily. Okay, so that is the setup for Luna. And for inversion reinforcement, once again you can take some MP, some HP. So it's not that important. We are not going to use a gun. We're just going to time her musical notes, and she'll do the damage. Once you get the hang of the abilities, she's actually very easy and fun to use. Next up, we have Blair, and Blair is also pretty good, has high crit, and with the killer recipe, he's also okay, because the other Transcendent was they can put a lot of fire in front of you, and the enemies, it will be hard to see with the flames everywhere. So killer recipe isn't too bad in that regard. The next level recipe tends to block your view quite a lot. Anyway, so this is the build here. We are using killer recipe. Front lines, emergency measures, focus on fire, focus on dimension. We are using increased HP, skill, insight, expansion, concentration, nimble fingers, MP conversion. So cooldown reduction, crit rate increase, crit damage increase, and you can use this for Ice Maiden, and you can just as easily use it for mobbing. Now with Ice Maiden, you have to break her weak points and then keep throwing your fourth ability. You have to build up your custom resource. So yeah, this will work fine for both of those builds. And with the arcade tuning, if you are going for Ice Maiden, take these nodes. If you're not going for Ice Maiden and you're going for mobbing, take these instead. That's the only difference. You can go with Burn Vulnerability. It'll just add more skill power. And the difference, at least with Ice Maiden, was very useful. So yeah, crit rate, crit damage, you don't really need this cooldown. You're going to be fine. You can take it, but you'll have to sacrifice either this or that. So let me see if I have this one here. No. You can use something like this if you wanted, or if you're going for Ice Maiden or even mobbing, you can just do that. Just make sure to remove the Colossus ones and take the normal ones. Now, once again, for the reactor, this one has Colossus. If you are not going for Ice Maiden and general purpose mobbing, you need to find something with. It seems like I was using cost and cooldown apparently. So maybe I did not have the crit damage and cooldown. But yeah, if you can get crit damage and cooldown, that would be useful. Cost isn't really that important, but yeah, instead of Colossus, you can go for crit damage. Because I've been only running the Ice Maiden with Blair recently. I hope I did not delete the reactor. I thought I had one with crit damage and cooldown. But anyway, this is what you would go for, crit damage and cooldown. You can have basically any weapon mounting. I have tactical rifle because this one has the sprint course, so I want to run faster. You can also have the truly deadly arson, which I'm not that impressed with, but you can use it if you want it. For the components, you can go for the 4 pieces of Slayer set. You can also go for the 4 pieces of the Firebrand set. So what this does is gives you duration and range increase and reduces your movement, but it reduces the fire resistance of enemies that have been inflicted by burn. So this will give you more damage by reducing the resistance of the enemies in a way, and this will just give you flat more damage. So either of these two external component sets work very well with Blair in my opinion. So we covered the arcade tuning and stuff like that. With the inversion reinforcement, if you're going for the Ice Maiden, again you can get more HP to survive the fight, get some more MP. If you're shooting using a gun, take the fire focus rounds, things like that. Maybe take the void resistance survival against the Ice Maiden. So this will all help you out. And yeah, so Blair is also pretty decent for mobbing in my opinion. And then finally, we have Keelan. Keelan, in my opinion, is probably the most underrated Descendant. I would say he's top 3 for mobbing alongside Ines and Freyna. But nobody really uses him. It's very rare to see Keelan out in the wild. He got some buffs along with some other people, but he benefited a lot with the buffs and the new plague set. Like the plague set is better suited for Keelan than even Freyna. So with Keelan, we mostly rely on his second ability, and we don't even need a Transcendent mod. Keelan is non-crit, and Keelan doesn't use MP either. So what we are going for is Toxic Amplification, Singular Amplification. I have 2 mods here for HP. You don't really need 2, but you can. It'll make your life very easy in Void Erosion Purge. We have Skill Expansion. We have Spear and Shield to get more skill power. Focus on Singular and Power Increase, because we are going to get a lot of power from the Plague set external components. So we are going for focus on Singular. Then we have Nimble Fingers and MP conversion for cooldown, and that is Keelan done. Now we are using the Plague set, but this is completely different to the Freyna Plague set because we don't want MP stats on this one here, because again he doesn't have MP. Notice this MP here. So we go with max HP, and then the second one you can take whatever you like. You can go with fire resistance, you can go with module drop rate, Kuiper drop rate, whatever you want. This one here, we want shield recovery out of combat and HP recovery modifier. With this one, we are going for shield recovery in combat and defense. And once again, with this one, we are using max shield and shield recovery modifier. Again, we are avoiding all the MP related stuff, so we are taking HP or shield recovery or something like that instead. For the reactor, we have Toxic Singularity, and we are going for singular power and cooldown. That would be the ideal setup. For the arcade tuning, once again, we have to avoid the crit damage ones and avoid as many of the MP ones as we can. Unfortunately, we cannot avoid all of them. If you want the cooldown, or if you want to take the extra skill nodes and get to the mutant cell, we'll have to take some of these. These are wasted because again, he doesn't use MP. And then you get up to here, you can equip either the cohesion or the vulnerability. You'd get damage, extra power anyway. I would recommend the cohesion. That would be easier to activate and do more damage, because he does apply his status and then does damage, so that will help you more. And of course over here you take the range. Again, skill cost I believe also doesn't really make much of a difference, but we have to take either this side or this side to get to the middle here. And you can take some HP as well, just to increase his health. We end up with something like 23,000 HP on Keelan. So Void Erosion Purge 30 will be quite fun with him. You have to just make sure you pierce through 2 enemies at a time so that your cooldown is very low. And yeah, so that is Keelan. And inversion reinforcement. Once again, avoid all the MP related stuff. Take some more HP if you want, more cooldown, movement faster, movement after a kill, things like that. So this will all help you out here. So those are 7 mobbing Descendants and their builds really quickly. I'll try and link all of them below as well, so you can see the separate builds and understand how they work if you're new to the game. And yeah, hopefully this was useful. Thank you for watching. I'm just trying to come up with some ideas until we get some more news about the game. But yeah, hopefully this was useful. Thank you for watching. See you next time.